Today we're talking about, this is from Wilbur Wolf's, and this comment is, we like to do here a lot of positive stuff, positive outcomes to what's happening for people who have been in your position if you're trying to stop drinking alcohol, or if you're thinking about stopping drinking alcohol, so that you can, it helps you to overcome that fear of starting out where you are at the beginning. That's one of the biggest problems is, who am I going to be? What am I going to do? What happens if this happens to me? What happens if that happens to me? How am I going to relax anymore? How am I going to socialize? All of these things that might be going through your head. Everyone's got their own version of this, so don't worry about that. So this is a positive comment. And Wilbert says, breaking habits means living without addiction. There's going to be a gap, but once you pass the gap, your life will be far, far better. I'm now living 9 years, 1 month without a single cigarette and without a single drop of alcohol. Fair play to you, Wilbur. Congratulations on your first 9 years. I just want to talk about that positive addiction, or the addiction that you say. Breaking habits means living without addiction. And I think that you can switch. But we're talking about breaking the habits that are negative habits, breaking bad habits, and it's also breaking negative addictions. For instance, there's a guy called, I think it's Bill Glasner, who talked about positive addiction. So he wrote a book about it. I've got it here somewhere. Anyway, he was talking about things that you do that can be seen in their, how they present themselves in your life, that you're doing them kind of through an addictive personality, but they've got positive outcomes out of them. I'll give you an example for myself. Is a couple of hours reading every morning and then an hour walking. That's 3 hours every morning. If I don't do those two things, then it makes me feel not as emotionally resilient for the rest of the day. I don't feel as positive for the rest of the day, right? So that's an example of a positive addiction. People who are running, people who cycle. I know cyclists who go out and they go into the bikes, they buy the best bikes that they can buy, the best outfits that they can afford. It's not for me. Sometimes, these things can be on the cusp of a negative addiction if you're taking it that far. So it's not always positive just because you see somebody is doing something positive. If I was reading 8 hours a day, for instance, and not doing anything else, and that was impinging on the other things in my life, or if I was out walking every day for 4 or 5 hours, then that's kind of is heading over into the negative side of things. So I want to say that about positive addictions. Like, you're not getting rid of addictions, you're just getting rid of the negative addictions, the ones that are fucking you up physically, mentally, or they're stopping you from achieving your potential in life. Certain potentials. I'm not talking about full potential or anything like that. I'm talking about potentials for the things that will bring you the most joy and happiness in life. So Wilbert also goes on to say that there is a gap, right? And he's talking about the gap between when you stop drinking, or stop smoking in his case, and stop drinking, and you feel normal. So you're not really worried about it anymore. And there is certainly that gap. There's the coping, the phase when you have to cope with whatever discomfort you're going to go through. First of all, it's a mental discomfort where you've got these cravings coming up. You've got some form of uncomfortable thoughts, right? Your habit is pulling you in one direction, and you're trying to pull in the opposite direction. Your habit is very strong in the beginning because it's been there for a long time. Mine was there for 30 years. So you're fighting against the establishment, and you're trying to establish something new. And that's always going to be difficult, right? And it's difficult, not that we don't know what we're doing, it's repetition is all. And to break a habit, you stop repeating it. The more you don't repeat it, the more you don't do it, the less that habit is going to have control. So that's what we're talking about with that gap. But there's also the gap within, if you're trying to stop drinking alcohol, the way that you can think about this is, the way Viktor Frankl talked about it is, there is in between stimulus and response, there is a gap, and in that gap is your opportunity to make a choice. And he's saying, right, the trigger comes up, the thought, or somebody says to you, do you want to drink? And there is before you say yes or before you actually pick up that beer or the glass of wine, there is a choice, right? There is an opportunity for you to rethink, and you just take one scenario. You get the thought into your head that I want to go and have a few cans tonight. I'm going to go down to the off-license or the liquor store. I'm going to buy my tins of beer. I'm going to bring them home, sit in front of the TV, and then I'm going to have 6 cans of beer tonight, right? You can go through all of the stages of getting the beer going, paying for it, driving home with it, bringing it in, putting it into your fridge, getting your TV ready, sitting down, and you've got so many opportunities there between the action and the reward, the end reward of you drinking. A reward is we put that in quotes here because it's not really a reward. And you making a different choice. Even if you're sitting down and you open the can up and you're just about to put it into your mouth, you've still got the opportunity to make the choice. There is still that gap. And most of the time we kid ourselves going, well, it's the programming that's happening here. It's not. It's the fact that we've anticipated this. We've gone through that whole process of getting the alcohol, and now we just want it more than we don't want it. And that's the problem. If you want the alcohol more than you don't want it, then that's going to win. It's all about motivation. Motivation works on both sides. It's a double-edged sword. You've got motivation to drink and motivation to not drink. If the motivation to drink is stronger, that's what it's all about. And you can talk about this in terms of motivation in the moment, motivation long term, and we can say long-term motivation, well, I just don't want to drink anymore because I know what it's bringing me. But in the moment, that's the motivation that you've got to really overcome. Same thing with discipline, right? I think of discipline as 2 different parts. So discipline itself, self-discipline, is something that you build up over time. And it's your ability to say no in general to a lot of things that you don't want to do. And it's not necessarily bad things, but it is saying no to something that, because you know that if you say no to this, then you open up the opportunity to do these other things. So you say no to a lot more. I find myself, the more the more I'm away from alcohol, the more I say no to, because it's just, these are not part of my life anymore. And discipline in the moment is willpower. So willpower is you exercising that self-discipline in the moment. And the more that you do this, the more that you exercise your willpower, and the more that you say, were you just about to put the drink into your mouth, or you're just about to go out the door and say, I need to do this. You start rethinking it. Say, I'm not going to do that now. That's exercising your willpower. And that will build your self-discipline more than anything else. So that's what we're talking about. The gap, the true gap between having the drink and not having the drink. The gap between thinking about alcohol and having those thoughts going through your mind, and not having the thoughts going through your mind, period, right? Not thinking about drinking. And then having the habit as part of your life, and the gap between not having it there at all. That takes a long time, but it happens. I can't remember the last time I thought about alcohol, as a solution. Your brain is going to fire up these things, right? It doesn't make any difference how long you've been away from alcohol. Your brain will sometimes fire up alcohol as a solution because it was a solution in the past. And that's all there is to it. It's nothing more than that. So I think I've sold more Viktor Frankl books, I think, than anyone else, because I talk about Viktor all the time. Man's Search for Meaning. If you haven't read that book, go out and buy it. He's such a great author, and that is such a great book because it will help you to see how you can find meaning, and you can change your response about anything in life like that. Once you change the way that you think about it, it's your thoughts that manifest everything in your life. I'm not talking about manifestation as, you think about something and it appears outside. That's bullshit. But how you think, that reflects what comes back to you. It reflects how you live. It reflects how other people treat you. It reflects your environment. It reflects so many different things, where you live, who you will spend your time with. So you have to think a lot about that. So many of the gaps in life are where you get to choose. It's like you have to take the moment to, instead of following through with the trigger, to pause and to go, well, I'm not going to do this now, or to think about, well, play the tape out in your head. If I do this trigger now, if I drink this drink, what's going to happen tomorrow? What's going to happen this evening when I go home? And all those kind of things you can play out in your head. So it works it out as, once you've passed that gap, that your life will be far, far better. And that's the ultimate thing. Stop the flow, do the work, move on. That far, far better is the moving on part. It's where you move on to bigger and better things in your life. You move on to a bigger, better version of yourself. We've all got the same time, right? I bang on about time and energy all the time, because it is our currency. It's what you spend it on. You can't spend the same amount of time and energy on one thing and then spend that same amount of time and energy on something else at the same time. And with something like alcohol, the reason why it's so destructive, it's not just because it's harming you physically, it's because it is taking so much time and energy away from you. It's undervaluing and undermining the time and energy that you have outside of alcohol, and pushing that towards recovery and, just the consequences of your drinking alcohol. And that habitual thinking not only warps your mind in the sense of how you're going to try and solve problems through drinking alcohol, but it also pushes you down other avenues of, instant gratification thinking, that, if I do it in this area, I'm likely to do it in that. And once you stop drinking, all of that kind of stuff slowly but surely drifts away. All that thinking drifts away. Once you're doing the work and you're working on yourself in terms of trying to figure out better ways of doing things for you and for your family, in your situation, in your context. You're trying to figure out bigger and better, consistent outcomes for yourself. And if you can find those positive, consistent outcomes for yourself in more areas of your life, you will be far, far happy, far, far better in your life. And that's what we've got to say for today. If you have any comments at all, if you have any problems that you would like me to do a video on, let me know. And if you want help from me, it's habitsp2.com. Take care of yourself. I'll speak to you in the next video. Onwards and upwards.